What's going on, guys? It is Brandon back here again today. So let me shift the board a little bit. That's because it's uneven. There we go. Fix that. Push it in. All right. I think we're set now. Welcome back, everyone, to another season video. And today we got the weirdest season probably in NHL history. Not by the NHL's fault, because a pandemic started. 2019-20. So we got a lot more numbers on the board today. We have a lot more of everything on the board today. Because the NHL season never technically finished. They ended the season when every team, teams had in between anyone with 68 games. Yes, the Islanders had 68 games, the Hurricanes had 68 games. So in between 68 and 71 games were completed by the time of the pause. And little did we know that it would last until August. So we'll go through the divisions as normal. There's going to be a lot more numbers to digest, so let's get right into it. To start off with the Central Division, St. Louis, off their Stanley Cup win, wins that. 71 games played for them, 42 wins, 19 losses, and 10 overtime losses. 662 points percentage and 94 points. The reason points percentage is included is because that's how the playoffs were decided. The seeding in the playoffs is based off points percentage, not points, something that's never been done in the league before. Colorado, 70 games played, 40. I just realized I probably should have put the which teams were back in the playoffs after being out. So let's see, Chicago's back in. Kind of every team's back in. Arizona's back in. Vancouver's back in. And Edmonton's back in. So those are 4 teams that are in. Those 3 teams are already out. New Jersey. The Rangers are back in. The Flyers are back in because it's an even year. Be the last year of that. Florida's back in. And Montreal's back in. So you had four extra teams there. Everyone else had missed the playoffs the year previous, so that makes it easy. Anyway, moving on to what we had. Wait, that can't be right because there's 6 teams in the Central Division. Which team missed it last year? Was it Winnipeg? No. Wow, I'm pretty stupid if I can't figure this out then. As it was St. Louis, it was... Oh, Minnesota didn't make it last year, so 5 teams made it in that did not... And San Jose is out. Okay, there we go. That's problem solved. Crisis averted as my eraser falls on the floor. Anyway, so... As you can see, we also have up here the numbers in which they finished in the standings overall. Because that's another way it was decided. Divisions really didn't matter. It was based on your position. So St. Louis is 1 in the West. Colorado is 2. Dallas at 4th in the West, or Colorado was in 70 games, 42, 20, and 8, 657 save percentage and 92 points. Dallas was 4th in the conference at 69 games played, 37, 24, and 8, 594 save percentage and 82 points. Then we have a line that separates them because those are round-robin teams in the playoffs. Winnipeg finished 9th in the West, but they have the 4th best record in the Central Division. 71 games, 37, 8, 28, and 6 with 80 points, a 563 save percentage. This is where it gets weird. Nashville actually gets the 6th spot because their points percentage is higher than Winnipeg's. 69 games played, 35, 26, and 8, a 565 points percentage opposed to Winnipeg's 563 and 78 points. Minnesota gets the 11th spot, 69 games played. Oh, no, they don't. They get the 10th spot. I don't know why I wrote 11. They get the 10th spot at 69 games played, 35, 27, and 7, 558 points percentage, and 77 points. Chicago brings up the rear as every team in the Central Division makes the playoffs. They finished 12th in the West, 70 games played, 32, 30, and 8, a 514 save percentage, and 72 points. What's interesting about this is that every team that made the playoffs finished over 500. You get down to Montreal and the Rangers over here. Chicago finished above them in points percentage, although the Rangers had more points. Montreal had 1 less point, but they both have 500 points percentages based on where they finished. So therefore, they make the play. Anyone over 500 made the playoffs. So that leaves 7 teams outside the playoffs. In the Pacific Division, Vegas finishes 3rd in the West at 71 games, 39, 24, and 8, 606 points percentage, and 86 points. They're the only team from the Pacific that made the round robin, which pissed off a lot of Edmonton fans, and that being pissed off did not end until the end of the playoffs. Edmonton finished 5th in the West, 71 games played, 37, 25, and 9, 585 points percentage, and 83 points. Calgary finished 8th, I believe. Was that 8th? Because 6, 7, yeah. So they finished 8th at 70 games played, 36, 27, and 7, 564 points percentage, 79 points. Vancouver, who was downtrending toward the end of the season. Vancouver was up to the top 2 in the division, and then they fell. And they fell all the way to 7th in the West. 69 games played, 36, 27, and 6, 565 points percentage, and 78 points. Arizona was quickly catching them as they were pretty hot. They finished 11th in the West, 70 games played, 33, 29, and 8, 529 save percentage, and 74 points. Outside the playoffs, you have 3 California teams, and that's it. 13, 14, 15. Anaheim starts it off at 71 games, 29, 33, and 9, 472 points percentage, and 67 points. LA at 14 is 70 in 70 games, 29, 35, and 6, 457 save percentage, 64 points. San Jose, after going to the conference finals and being in the playoffs almost every year, bottom right out. 70 games, 29, 36, and 5, 450 save percentage, 63 points. And then they just got Erik Karlsson and signed him that massive deal. And that's where we were last year when Erik Karlsson went to the Penguins. As you can see, things are starting to line up more clearly now. Everyone was expecting that cap to go up, and it didn't for a couple of years now. And now this is the first big jump we're about to have because of this season. In the East, Boston wins the President's Trophy as they finish first in 70 games, 44, 14, and 12. They were having an incredible year, I remember. 714 save percentage, 100 points. Only team to reach 100 points. St. Louis hits 94. Tampa hits 92, but they're pretty far ahead. Second in that division and second in the East is Tampa Bay. 70 games played, 43, 21, and 6, 657 save points percentage, and 92 points. Toronto then, those two are the ones in the round robin. Tampa at 2, it then drops all the way off to 8th at Toronto. Toronto was having an off year. 70 games, 36, 25, and 9, 579 save percentage, and 81 points. Florida then at 10 is back in the playoffs. 69 games, 35, 26, and 8 with 565 points percentage and 78 points. And Montreal gets back in the playoffs as well. 71 games, 31, 31, and 9, 500 points percentage, so that 500 record, and 71 points. That's your last team into the playoffs. The 24th team is 24 teams made the playoffs. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that. So which teams made it back into the playoffs? Minnesota, Chicago, Edmonton, Vancouver, Arizona, Florida, Montreal, Philadelphia, and the New York Rangers. San Jose is the only team that falls out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 teams make the playoffs that didn't make it the previous year, and 1 team falls out. Which kind of makes sense because you have 8 new teams being added to the playoffs. Buffalo. We got to talk about Buffalo this year. This was the year that Buffalo started out the season 13-3. They went 6-0. They were the best team in the league. They were the hottest team in the league. They jump right out. They do this every year. It seemed they'd go have a very hot first 15 games and then fall completely off the map. The fall that Buffalo had, they went 13-3 and proceeded to only win 17 more games throughout the year. That's the incredible part. 69 games, 30, 31, and 8, 493 points percentage, and 68 points. And it was at this point that Buffalo had to be cursed. That's when people said, if you can't make the playoffs in 24-team playoffs, and you haven't been in the playoffs since 2011, 9 years now, you're cursed. Ottawa, 15th in the East, 71 games, 25, 34, and 12, 437 points percentage, 62 points. Detroit at 16th. They were in the midst of what could have been the worst regular season in the cap era history. 71 games, 17, 49, and 5, 275 points percentage with 39 points. The mark is Colorado's 48. But Detroit, they had started winning a couple games like later on in the season. I remember, and I thought this team's going to get 60 losses and it's going to be hilarious. Then they won, I think, 4 in a row, and I think one of them was against the Hawks, if I remember correctly. I don't know. But I also remember that Montreal got swept by the Red Wings that year, so I don't know. Anyway, in the top of the Metro, who else to have but Washington? It's been like 10 years in a row. Third in the East, 69 games, 41, 20, and 8, 652 points percentage. I gotta stop saying that. 90 points. Philadelphia was the hottest team in the league. Philadelphia, I think, went 15-1 at one point to they were down here, near the fringe of the playoffs. That they skyrocketed to that position, and people thought, okay, the Flyers have finally got it together, and their playoffs expected them. They're finally going to have sustained success. This looks like the best Flyers team they've had in forever. They didn't make the playoffs after that. 41-21-7, 645 points percentage, and 89 points, just 1 point off the division lead. They were soaring. Those two get in the round robin. Pittsburgh at 5th, 69 games, 40-23-6, 623 points percentage, and 86 points. Carolina finishes 6th, 68 games, 38-25-5, 596 points percentage, 81 points. Columbus finishes 9th in the East, although Islanders finish ahead of them. 70 games, 33-22-15, 579 points percentage, and 81 points. The Islanders actually finish 7th, so they finish above the Islanders. Or they finish above the Blue Jackets. This magnet's a little dirty. I got to clean it. But 68 games, 35-23-10, 588 points percentage. That's 0.09 points above Columbus, and that's 80 points. The Rangers at 11th, back in the playoffs, in 70 games, 37-28-5, 500 record, 79 points. And the Devils, or 500 points percentage, 14th in the East, out of the playoffs, 69 games, 28-29-12, 493 points percentage, and 68 points. And I remember I predicted the Devils to get back into the playoffs that year. I predicted the Devils and the Rangers. The Rangers barely made it. The Devils did not make it. Anyway, in terms of the playoffs. Okay, so we'll start with the round robin. So the top 4 teams in each conference got to play a round robin. They played 3 games, one against three games against each other. Here are the scores. So you got 6 combined games. You also had an exhibition game before the pause. So March 12th, the NHL shuts down. We'll start there. They slowly get back and forth to it. I believe it's in the last 3 days of July. Every team plays an exhibition game against their closest rival or closest team to them. Chicago plays St. Louis. They win 4-0, for example. Doesn't count toward anything. The stats aren't even available. But it was just to get back into the aura sort of things. And then this would be the start up to the play-in round. So there's 24 teams that make the playoffs. The top 4 in each conference played each other in a round robin. Whoever finished with the highest record would get. It's like a reseeding of the top 4, and then the play-in, 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11, 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9, meaning these seeds right here. As a plane very loudly goes over my house. So we'll start with the round robin. Philadelphia beats Boston 4-1. Tampa Bay beats Washington 3-2 in a shootout. So both Philadelphia and Tampa are 1-0. Philadelphia wins 3-1 against Washington, and Tampa Bay beats Boston 3-2. So Philadelphia and Tampa both 2-0. Washington and Boston both 0-2. So one team's gonna have to come out and have the best record and such like that. So Philadelphia beats Tampa 4-1. They go 3-0. Tampa goes 2-1. Washington beats Boston 2-1. So although Boston finished first, they end up getting the 4th seed in the playoffs. So Philadelphia went 3-0, Tampa Bay went 2-1, Washington 1-2, Boston 0-3. Colorado and their side beats St. Louis 2-1. Vegas beats Dallas 5-3. So Colorado and Vegas are both up 1-0. Colorado beats Dallas 4-0. Vegas beats St. Louis 6-4. So Colorado and Vegas are both 2-0. Vegas beats Colorado in overtime. I remember that Alex Tuck OT winner, and I was cheering. I was both very conflicted and very. I didn't know if I wanted the Hawks to play Vegas or Colorado. I wanted a better chance of if 2 teams could go on and play in the second round. If I can get Chicago and Vegas in a second round series, I'd rather much prefer that than a first round. Chicago, I thought, had a better chance against Colorado than they did Vegas that year, and of course Chicago seeds Vegas, and I get my 2 favorite teams against each other for the one and only time. But Dallas beats St. Louis 2-1 in the shootout. So Vegas goes 3-0, Colorado 2-1, Dallas 1-2, St. Louis 0-3. So just like Boston, St. Louis finishes first, but they end up with the 4th seed right here. So Colorado, they finished second anyway, they got that. Philadelphia at the bottom finished 4th, they end up getting 1. Vegas finished 3rd, they end up 1. Dallas gets 3rd, Colorado gets 2nd, St. Louis 4th. Boston 4th, Tampa 2nd, Washington 3rd anyway, Philadelphia 1st. In the play-ins, so it's a best of 5 in the play-in rounds. Number 5, Edmonton, loses to number 12, Chicago in 4. And I remember saying before that series, I could see the series going every way but one. I could see Edmonton in 3, I could see Chicago in 3, I could see Edmonton in 5, I could see Chicago in 5, I could see Edmonton in 4. I could not see Chicago in 4. Chicago wins it in 4. And the Hawks had traded out all their, they traded out Leonard, they traded out Gustafsson. So a lot of their guys that they sold at the deadline, they really could have used in this playoffs, but they still beat Edmonton. And the narrative of Edmonton not being able to win gets really strong around this point. After 2017, they missed playoffs, and then they get eliminated by the lowly Chicago Blackhawks. So it was a rough time to be an Oilers fan. Nashville then loses to Arizona. Number 6, Nashville loses to number 11, Arizona in 4. And that was a shock. No one expected Arizona to beat Nashville, even though Arizona picked up Taylor Hall, which we'll get to. But it was remarkable that Arizona won a series. Number 7, Vancouver beats number 10, Minnesota in 4. I remember Minnesota won that first game, and then I think Chris Tanev got the OT winner in the 4th game to advance the Canucks. Number 8, Calgary versus number 9, Winnipeg. Very rough series. Winnipeg dealt with injuries to Laine. I believe it was Scheifele and Laine that went down, if I remember correctly. And although Calgary won Game 1, Winnipeg won Game 2 despite those injuries, but Calgary ran away with the rest of it. And I thought Calgary was the strongest team out of all the playing teams that advanced. So Calgary wins that one in 4. And Calgary is the only team I picked to go to the second round that year, and that's the only team that didn't end up advancing. In the East, number 5, Pittsburgh gets eliminated by number 12, Montreal. So both number 12 seeds advance to the aggravation of pretty much everyone but those fan bases. Montreal winning in 4 games over Pittsburgh was hearsay almost. Number 6, Carolina versus number 11, the Rangers. The narrative of this is that the Rangers swept Carolina during the regular season. Well, the regular season doesn't matter because Carolina swept the Rangers in the playoffs. Their only series that went 3 games, and Carolina made it look pretty easy. I mean, the Rangers put Lundqvist in net in games 1 and 2. They had Shesterkin in game 3. If it went to game 4, I'm pretty sure Georgiev would have went in because they just kind of had everything all over the place. Let me just make sure this is all right here. Okay, I'm setting this up for later in the video. And, okay, there we go. So, the New York Islanders at number 7, they beat the Florida Panthers in 10. Or, at 10, in 4 games. Florida spent a lot of money in the offseason. Dale Talon really beefed the team up. And it really didn't work at all the way anyone expected. They got Bobrovsky, they brought in Stralman, Achari, Connolly, a lot of big names, spent a lot of money, and it fell flat on their face. Bobrovsky being the only piece that ends up being worth his contract in the end. Stralman was gone, Connolly was gone, and Achari was gone, I think, a couple of years ago now. Yeah. Toronto at 8 loses to number 9 Columbus because Toronto cannot win a series and they have to lose in the deciding game every round. So number 9 Columbus beats number 8 Toronto. So Columbus, after not having won a series 2 years ago, they've now won their first 2 playoff series in consecutive years. Now in the actual playoffs, this is where it goes back to normal. Number 1 Vegas plays number 8 Chicago. That's a series that I wish would have gone longer. It was a series that could have gone longer if the Hawks had done right in the right places, but going down 3-0, they win Game 4. Vegas ends up winning Game 5 in a game where the Hawks could not keep a lead. But Vegas was the better team, and they had a better shot at winning, so I was fine with them beating the Hawks. Number 2, Colorado versus number 7, Arizona. That was a slaughter. That was Darcy Kemper doing everything he can to get 1 win out of Colorado, and that back-to-back, I think it was 7-1 or 8-0, 8-1 losses in the games 4 and 5, and that was wow. Colorado wins that in 5. Number 3, Dallas versus number 6, Calgary, and this was the only series I had the underdog winning. Number 6, Calgary loses to Dallas in 6, and they had the perfect opportunity to go up. Calgary choked this series away like nothing else. Number 4, St. Louis loses to number 5, Vancouver in 6. They will not be defending their title. In the East, number 1 Philadelphia beats number 8 Montreal in 6, but it's a tough out. Montreal fought very hard and very well against Philadelphia. Number 2 Tampa does not let Columbus beat them again. Game 1 goes 5 overtimes. I watched that game in 3 different houses. That's how long the game was going. 8 periods before Braden Point ends it. Columbus wins Game 2, but Tampa rattles off 3 straight, including Game 5 in overtime. Tampa wins that in 5. Number 3, Washington versus number 6, Islanders. Islanders win that series in 5, and the controversy was that Washington was not trying. There was very public rumors that Washington was kind of lounging in the bubble. The East was playing in Toronto, the West was playing in Edmonton, and Washington was often sold to be lounging around, not really doing much. Number 4, Boston versus number 5, Carolina. A series I thought it was going to go a lot longer, but Carolina ends up losing that series in 5 to the Bruins. In the second round, number 1 Vegas beats number 5 Vancouver in 7, and that was a really good series. Very defensive series, but it brought up problems that Vegas couldn't score. And Markstrom and Demko were just shutting the door in games consecutively. Number 2 Colorado versus number 3 Dallas. Colorado was injured to hell and back, and Dallas was up 3-1. Vegas was also up 3-1, but yeah, that was a series that Dallas was lucky to win. Colorado fought back with Michael Hutchinson in net. I think it was Grubauer went down, Francois went down, Hutchinson was down, but he was playing, and Yoel Kiviranta, I believe it was in double overtime, gets the hat trick that puts Dallas over the top. I had Colorado winning the Cup that year, I remember. Or was it the next year? I remember I had Vegas one year and Colorado the other. I think I had Colorado in this year and I had Vegas in 21. Moving on. Philadelphia comes back from 3-1 down against the Islanders, only to lose in 7. So the number 6 knocks out the number 1 in 7 games. And then Tampa and Boston play each other, and we know that Tampa always beats Boston. Kind of like how Washington usually loses to the Islanders. Carolina usually beats Boston, so that one's kind of surprising. And St. Louis always loses to Vancouver. So those are your common themes right there. And let's see. So Tampa beats Boston in 5. Make it look pretty easy, too. Victor Hedman gets the double OT winner in Game 5, I want to say. So moving on to the conference final. Number 1 Vegas versus number 3 Dallas. A series that really made me not like Dallas anymore. Dallas wins 3 of those games in overtime, and they win the series in 5. Denis Gurianov getting the winner in overtime of Game 5. Fleury and Leonard were splitting the net. Leonard was getting most of the starts, and they could not score. Vegas could not score. Number 6 Islanders versus number 2 Tampa Bay Lightning. And a series I really wanted the Islanders to win. They lose in 6 games. And it was unfortunate because the Islanders fought very hard. It was definitely Tampa's toughest out throughout the playoffs. And just got blue marker all over my fingers. So I'm trying to rub it out real quick. In the final, number 3 Dallas versus number 2 Tampa. Game 1, I honestly didn't think Dallas had a chance in the series. Game 1, Dallas wins 4-1. And I thought, okay here. Game 2, Tampa wins 3-2. Game 3, Tampa wins 5-2. It was then I knew it was over. Especially in Game 4 when Kevin Shattenkirk puts them up 3-1 with a 5-4 overtime win. Corey Perry gets a double overtime winner in Game 5 to extend the series to 6, but Tampa Bay wins 2-0 in Game 6. They win their second Stanley Cup, and after being swept by Columbus in the first round, they redeemed themselves, and they would do it again the next year. We'll get to that. Kucherov led the playoffs in scoring, 25 games played, 7 goals, 27 assists, 34 points. Vasilevsky in 25 games, 18 and 17, 1.9 goals against average, 927 save percentage, and a 1 shutout. I also wanted to point out 2 other goaltenders in these playoffs. Carey Price went 5-5, a 1.78 goals against average, a 936 save percentage, and 2 shutouts in 10 games. Korpisalo goes 3-5 in 8 games, 1.9 goals against average, 941 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. Korpisalo now holds the record for the most saves in a game. I believe it was 87 from that 5 overtime game. He was out of his mind. And that's where Korpisalo's legend starts. He gets paid a lot of money. He's put on bad contracts because he never could really live up to what he did in that Game 1 of the 2020 first round. I had another thing I want to talk about here. Oh yeah, the lottery and the draft. So before we get into the awards and the draft, so the team, to make it fair, none of these teams, these 7 teams, could win the lottery. Any team that lost in the play-in round could win the lottery. So I kind of wanted the Hawks to lose it, kind of, because there's a chance they'd get Alexei Lafreniere, but if they didn't, it wouldn't be worth it. So they don't get Lafreniere. They end up getting Lucas Reichel. Say what you want about him. But the Rangers win the lottery, and everyone said if the Rangers win the lottery, it's rigged, because he's going to go to the Big Apple. Lafreniere was this big, huge star coming up. And although I don't think he didn't live up to that hype yet, he's certainly a very good top 6 forward, and he's only getting better every year. Does he have a 100-point season in his future? Maybe. But he was looked at not as high as McDavid, but I'd say a tier lower than McDavid did. And Jack Hughes, he was like, no. It was kind of the McDavid tier. Jack Hughes was just right under McDavid, and then you had Lafreniere, I'd say. Or Lafreniere even hit possibly on par with Jack Hughes with the hype. It wasn't like Nico Hischier, he didn't have the most hype. Dahlin didn't have the most hype, or Owen Power didn't have the most hype. But it's not like McDavid or Bedard or Crosby, those sorts of drafts. Awards. Art Ross goes to Leon Draisaitl, who in only 71 games put up 43 goals, 67 assists, 110 points. This was Draisaitl's year. This was the Draisaitl's coming out party, and he said, I'm just as good as McDavid. And while that might not just be true, I think McDavid is a little better. He's definitely the 1-2 players in the league. The Masterton goes to Bobby Ryan of the Ottawa Senators, and that was an inspiring story because he was battling alcoholism, being an alcoholic, and he was able to overcome that and get back in the game. And I remember him scoring a hat trick in his first game back with Ottawa, and that was a huge celebration. The Calder goes to Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche. He's already guaranteed in the Hall of Fame. Conn Smythe, Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Selke goes to Sean Couturier of the Philadelphia Flyers. The Hart goes to Leon Draisaitl of Edmonton. The Adams goes to Bruce Cassidy of Boston. The Norris goes to Roman Josi of Nashville. The Clancy goes to Matt Dumba of Minnesota. The Lady Byng to Nathan McKinnon of Colorado. The Lindsay to Leon Draisaitl as well. As I said, it's Draisaitl's big year. The Messier goes to Mark Giordano of the Calgary Flames. The Rocket goes to Alexander Ovechkin and David Pastrnak, who tie with 48 goals. The Vezina goes to Connor Hellebuck of Winnipeg with 31, 21, and 5 record, 2.57 goals against average, 927 save percentage, or 922 save percentage, and 6 shutouts. The Jennings goes to shared by Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak of the Boston Bruins. First team All-Stars: Panarin, Draisaitl, Pastrnak up front, Josi and Carlson on the back end. That's John Carlson. Hellebuck and Ned is the first team All-Star because that's how good he is. The second team All-Stars: Brad Marchand, Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, Alex Pietrangelo, Victor Hedman, Tuukka Rask. The rookie team: Dominic Kubalik of the Chicago Blackhawks. He had, I think, 33 goals that rookie year. Him, Taze, and Saad were a very good line. Nick Suzuki, who the Vegas could have used. Victor Olofsson, who's now in Vegas. He was on Buffalo at the time. Let the plane go overhead. Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, that's a hell of a D pair. And Elvis Merzlikins on the rookie team. So you talk about Korpisalo this video, and now we got Merzlikins. Columbus goaltending, everyone. In terms of the free agents, Brouwer goes to St. Louis. That's Kovalchuk goes to Montreal. Bogosian goes to Tampa. Spiza goes to Anaheim. Hathaway goes to Washington. Perry goes to Dallas. Tanev goes to Pittsburgh. Kincaid goes to Montreal. Hainsey goes to Ottawa. Zuccarello to Minnesota. Spezza to Toronto. Jordy Ben to Vancouver. Mike Smith to Edmonton. Ryan Hartman to Minnesota. Noel Acciari to Florida. That's number 1. Cam Talbot to Calgary. Artemi Panarin to the Rangers. Columbus lost everyone from that 2019 team and still made the playoffs, which was remarkable. They lost Panarin, they lost Bobrovsky, they lost Duchesne, they lost Dzingel. Like, half that team was gone. Carpenter goes to Chicago. Duchesne goes to Nashville. He signs that massive deal. Donskoy goes to Colorado. Panik to Washington. Hammond to Buffalo. Filppula to Detroit. Tyler Myers to Vancouver, which contract just ended. Lazar to Buffalo, Nemeth to Detroit, Connolly to Florida. There's mistake number 2. Acciari wasn't that bad. Connolly was bad. Wedgwood to Tampa Bay, Nyquist to Columbus to replace, I want to say, probably Duchesne. Brett Ritchie to Boston, Curtis McElhinney to Tampa, Bobrovsky to Florida. Stanley Cup champion. Sekera to Dallas. Pavelski to Dallas. Bellemare to Colorado. Who does that even say? Walker to St. Louis. Ennis to Ottawa. Simmons to New Jersey. Strawman to Florida. Shen to Tampa Bay. Pickard to Detroit. Caro to Dallas. I was upset when the Hawks let him go. Lepsic to Washington. He did not play much longer after that because of an incident. Martin Ferk to LA. Brandon Davidson to Calgary. Robin Leonard to Chicago. Varlamov to the Islanders. Tennyson to New Jersey. Stolars to Anaheim. Hakanpää to Anaheim. Sherratt to Montreal. Cousins to Montreal. Martinson to Anaheim. Johansson to Buffalo. Ferland to Vancouver. Mistake by Vancouver. Archibald to Edmonton. Delzato to Anaheim. Dzingel to Carolina. Weidman to Anaheim. DiGiuseppe to the Rangers. Shattenkirk to Tampa Bay. Dono to Columbus. Nichushkin to Colorado. Brassard to the Islanders. Marleau to San Jose. Maroon to Tampa Bay. Sheehan to Edmonton. Hartman, that's not Hartman, that's Hutton to LA. Petrovic to Boston. Reeder to Calgary. Kalnick to Chicago. And Ronaldo to Calgary. And Brian Boyle to Florida. That one was okay. In terms of trades, so you see a lot of stars were in the free agency. You had Panarin, you had Bobrovsky, you had older guys like Spezza, you had younger guys like Hartman. Overall, a very well-rounded free agency in 2019. Trades, we'll start at the top because we got a lot of them to go through. June 22nd, Marleau, a first and 7th, are traded to Carolina for a 6th going to Toronto. That first-round pick that would become Seth Jarvis. June 22nd, PK Subban is traded to New Jersey for Santini, Davies, and 2 seconds. June 22nd, sorry about that. JT Miller goes to Vancouver for Mazurek, a first and a 3rd going to Tampa. Hayden on the same day goes to New Jersey for John Quenneville to Chicago. I thought that was a mistake at the time. I still do. Did not like John Quenneville. John Hayden was a favorite of mine. Hartman goes to Minnesota for Pitlick to Philadelphia. Those are exchanging signing rights. Hawks were very stupid. Stan Bowman was very stupid in this offseason. June 24, 2019, he trades for Calvin DeHaan and Antti Sarala while trading out Gustav Forsling and Anton Forsberg. I would have kept Forsberg. Actually, no. Forsberg, he's fine because we pick up Leonard. We have Leonard and Crawford. Good tandem. Sarala, that's the throw-in that we get, whatever. I would have rather had Forsling than DeHaan, 100%. Of course, Forsling doesn't develop, but he could have developed into that in Chicago. Playing behind guys like Keith. Seabrook was there. That was the Seabrooks last year. There were guys in that lineup. He could have been. He had a huge impact in the coming years. Soderberg goes to Arizona for Connaughton and a 3rd to Colorado. June 26th, Eric Holla goes to Carolina for Nick Waugh and a 5th to Vegas. Good deal, I think, for Vegas. June 28th, 2019, Burakovsky goes to Colorado for Kosmachuk, a 2nd and a 3rd going to Washington. June 28th, Colin Miller goes to Buffalo for a 2nd and a 5th to Vegas. So Vegas is acquiring draft picks here. June 29th, Phil Kessel, Burks, and a 4th go to Arizona for Galchenyuk and Pierre-Olivier Joseph. I think Arizona's pretty happy what they got out of Phil Kessel. June 30th, James Reimer goes to Carolina for Scott Darling and a 6th to Florida. June 30th, the Hawks become stupid again. Andrew Shaw and a 7th go back to Chicago for a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 7th. To be fair, Shaw was playing very well. He was getting points before injuries caught up to him. In 15 games of the season, he was done for the year, essentially, and done for his career because of all the concussions he suffered, which is not his fault. But overall, the Hawks should know these things. They had Shaw. They know what he's been through. They know the game he plays, and the body breaks down after a while because of it. June 30th, Nick Delorier goes to Anaheim for a 4th to Montreal. That much for Delorier is kind of crazy. July 1st, Cody Ceci, Ben Harper, Lochuk, and a 3rd go to Toronto for Zaitsev, Connor Brown, and Michael Carcone. Connor Brown in Edmonton, Michael Carcone in Arizona. Nikita Zaitsev was with Chicago, and then he's now in the KHL. Ceci just left Edmonton for San Jose. Ben Harper, I forgot he existed, and I've never heard of the other guy. July 1st, 2019, Jimmy Vesey goes to Buffalo for a 3rd to the Rangers. What's funny is that he's now on the Rangers and still is on the Rangers, Vesey. July 1st, Kadri, Rosen, and a third go to Colorado for Tyson Barrie, Alex Kerfoot, and a sixth going to Toronto. That's a hockey trade right there. You give up Kadri, but in return you get Barrie and Kerfoot. Barrie was only there for a year. Kerfoot was there until a couple years ago. But Kadri, he goes on and wins the Stanley Cup in Colorado. July 1st, the Hawks do it again. They trade for Alex Nylander 1-for-1 with Henry Jokiharju. Nylander has been in the minors. Jokiharju is playing top 6 minutes in Buffalo on their defensive core. Jokiharju was a 29th overall pick. He wasn't going to be a star. And the Hawks, I don't think, understood that. And they gave him up for Alex Nylander. I was writing this down, it was really frustrating me. July 12th, Dakota Joshua goes to St. Louis for future considerations to Toronto. So Toronto wasn't the only one Chicago wasn't the only one screwed up in this trade era. July 16, 2019, Anisimov goes to Ottawa for Zach Smith going to Chicago. Anisimov kind of fell off in 2018-19, so I understand him needing to move on. Zach Smith, this would be his last season, and injuries would... He played well, but he would end his career would end after the season. He was playing injured, I believe. July 19th, Milan Lucic and a third go to Calgary for James Neal going to Edmonton. So Edmonton and Calgary, they swap goalies. This is Talbot and Smith. They now swap players, Lucic and Neal. July 23rd, 2019, Garrett Sparks goes to Vegas for David Clarkson and a fourth going to Toronto. So Toronto takes back Clarkson's contract, and they give off Garrett Sparks, who always seems to be the random goalie that they have as a third string or a fourth string. July 26th, John Marino goes to Pittsburgh for a sixth going to Edmonton. July 29, 2019, Nikita Gusev goes to New Jersey for a second and a third going to Vegas. Yeah, Vegas ran with that deal, that's for sure. July 30th, Mike Condon and a sixth go to Tampa for Ryan Callahan and a fifth going to Ottawa. August 4th, Adam Ernie goes to Detroit for a fourth going to Tampa. Tampa was another team that was also bringing in draft picks. And September 24th, Justin Falk and a fifth go to St. Louis for Joel Edmondson, a guy with the last name Boak, and a seventh round pick going to Carolina. So I'm going to pause here and go pick out all the other trades from my phone. Alright, we are back. Vlad Nemestikov goes to Ottawa, where the Rangers get Nick Ebert in a fourth. Florida gets Alexei Sarala, who the Hawks just got from Carolina, for Ian McCoshen going to Chicago. That's a minor league deal. Erica Branson goes to Anaheim for Andreas Martinson and a seventh going to Pittsburgh. Detroit gets Brendan Perlini in exchange for Alec Regula going to Chicago. Perlini scored the Winter Classic game in the previous year. Other than that, I don't remember much about him. And for Regula, he played a bit in the NHL, mostly a minor league defenseman that never really developed with the Hawks. New Jersey gets Louis Domingue on November 1st for a conditional seventh to Tampa. How many goalies does Tampa have at this point? They have Domingue, they have Condon, they have McElhinney, they have Wedgwood, they have Vasilevsky. Geez, they got a crazy goaltending depth. Detroit gets Robbie Fabry for Jacob De La Rose going to St. Louis on November 6th. Detroit gets Eric Comrie on November 30th. Arizona gets Vili Sarah Harvey, who I believe is in the Hawks organization or the Rangers organization now, because he was part of the Patrick Kane deal, I believe, in the three-way deal. Vegas on December 2nd picks up Chandler Stevenson for a fifth-round pick going to Washington. Vegas had amazing scouting, and they still have amazing scouting, so I'm wondering what they're cooking this year with their roster, with Alex Holtz, with Victor Olofsson. I'm very interested to see what that team's going to look like and how well they're going to do, because it's moves like this, when they get Stevenson for a fifth-round pick, that end up looking amazing. December 16th, 2019, Arizona makes a blockbuster deal. They get Taylor Hall and Blake Spears in exchange for Nick Merkley, Nate Scharr, Kevin Ball, who just got moved for the Jacob Markstrom deal, a conditional first-round pick, and a third-round... It says a conditional first in 2020, first in 2021, so at least a first and a third. I'm not sure how much, but that's what it looks like from this, because they make it not really legible in the Wikipedia. Nothing there. Ottawa gets Mike Riley on January 2nd for Alex Stewart's and a fifth going to Montreal. January 2nd, Marco Scandella goes to Montreal and for a fourth-round pick to Buffalo. Buffalo gets Michael Frolik for a 4th-round pick to Calgary on January 2nd. Nashville gets Michael McCarron. Montreal gets Laurent Dauphin on January 7th. Dauphin, he's been moved around a lot now. And February 5th, another huge deal happens. Toronto gets Jack Campbell and Kyle Clifford in exchange for Trevor Moore and a 3rd-round pick going to Columbus. And I think also a 2nd is in there as well. But overall, that becomes a huge deal because of Trevor Moore. What he does in LA is a 30-goal guy. Jack Campbell for how much he fell off a cliff. Pittsburgh, February 10th, gets Jason Zucker. Minnesota gets Alex Galchenyuk, Kalen Addison, and a conditional 1st-round pick. Kalen Addison feels like he's not getting a fair shot anywhere he goes. I thought he played well in San Jose this year, and apparently no one wants to sign him. Galchenyuk, he's had his own issues. That's a 3rd overall pick that did not end up well. February 16th, Islanders get Andy Green. New Jersey picks up David Quenneville in a 2nd, going for Andy Green. He's kind of crazy. This is like 39-year-old Andy Green. February 16th, Tampa gets Blake Coleman. New Jersey gets Nolan Foote and a conditional 1st-round pick. February 17th, Vancouver gets Tyler Toffoli. LA gets Tim Schaller and Tyler Madden along with a 2nd and a conditional 4th. Winnipeg on February 18th gets Dylan DeMello for a 3rd-round pick going to Ottawa. February 18th, Brendan Dillon goes to Washington for a 2nd-round pick and a conditional 3rd going to San Jose. St. Louis then gets Marco Scandella on February 18th for a 2nd-round pick and a conditional 4th going to Montreal. So this is like the trade deadline at this point because people know COVID's already a known thing. Now it's a matter of when's it going to get here, so people are doing their trades early. Toronto on February 19th picks up Dennis Malgin. Florida gets Mason Marchment. That's pretty funny right there. February 19th, Vegas gets Alec Martinez for 2 seconds going to LA. February 21st, Boston gets Andre Kasha. In exchange, Anaheim gets David Backes, Axel Anderson, and a 1st-round pick going to... For Andre Kasha is kind of crazy. That's more probably for taking on the Backes contract. February 21st, Cody Eakin goes to Winnipeg for a conditional 3rd going to Vegas. Picking up more picks for them. Toronto gets Mika Solomaki, and Nashville gets Ben Harper on February 22nd, so Ben Harper did not last long. February 23rd, Kovalchuk goes to Washington, where he plays with Ovechkin, and for a 3rd-round pick going to Montreal. Edmonton gets Mike Green for Kyle Brodziak and a conditional 3rd going to Detroit. What's interesting about this, Mike Green does not go to the bubble. You had an option to opt out of the bubble if you didn't want to go. Mike Green was one of those guys, so Edmonton really wastes a trade there. Colorado gets Vlad Nemestikov on February 24th for a 4th going to Ottawa. The Islanders pick up Pajot on February 24th for a conditional 1st, a 2nd, and a conditional 3rd, I think if I'm reading that correctly. February 24th, Carolina gets Vincent Trocheck for Eric Haula, Lucas Wallmark, Chase Prisky, and Eetu Luosterainen going to Florida. Of course, Luosterainen plays a role on that Stanley Cup team. Haula, where the heck is Eric Haula right now? He was in New Jersey, right? Then he was in Boston. He traded for Pavel Zacha, so I think he's in New Jersey. Wallmark ends up in Chicago. Chase Prisky, honestly, don't even know if he ever played. Nate Thompson goes to Philadelphia on February 24th for a 5th going to Montreal. They're just keep adding draft picks. Pittsburgh gets Patrick Marleau on February 24th for a conditional 2nd going to San Jose. Toronto gets Callie Rosen on February 24th for Michael Hutchinson going to Colorado. Hutchinson would play a role on that Colorado team. Derek Grant goes to Philadelphia on February 24th for Kyle Criscuolo and a conditional 4th going to Anaheim. Wayne Simmons goes to Buffalo for a conditional 4th-round pick. For 2 teams out of the playoffs, although Buffalo was only 3 points out when it ended up ending, that's really weird. February 24th, Anaheim gets Danton Heinen for Nick Ritchie going to Boston. February 24th, Andreas Athanasiou and Ryan Kuffner go to Edmonton. Detroit gets Sam Gagner in 2 seconds. Athanasiou plays about a combined 3 games with Edmonton because he's hurt most of the time, and now he's in Chicago. Edmonton also picks up Tyler Ennis for a 5th-round pick going to Ottawa, so they're getting their forward depth. Calgary gets Derek Forbort for a conditional 3rd going to LA. Buffalo gets Dominic Cahoon for Connor Sherry and Evan Rodriguez going to Pittsburgh. Buffalo. I'm not sure what Buffalo's doing here, to be honest. Cahoon's out of the league. Connor Sherry and Evan Rodriguez go to Pittsburgh, and Rodriguez plays a plays pretty well in Pittsburgh. Sherry jumps around the league a bit, but overall, NHLers, not Cahoon. Sonny Milano goes to Anaheim for Devin Shore going to Columbus. Milano, of course, having a pretty good career. Carolina goes to Brady Shea. They traded Shea to the Rangers. Trade Shea to the Hurricanes in exchange for a conditional first, so over just a first-round pick. And what's funny is they play each other in the playoffs. Tampa Bay gets Barclay Goodrow and a third-round pick for a Anthony Greco and a first-round pick going to San Jose. This at the time was looked at as the most bizarre trade of the entire year. Barclay Goodrow for a third for Anthony Greco and a first-round pick. Greco's a wash-off. First-round pick for Barclay Goodrow is insane. But they end up winning 2 Stanley Cups, so it makes it valid. Louis Domingue to Vancouver for Zach McIntyre to New Jersey. Corbin Holzer to Nashville for Matt Irwin and a 6 to Anaheim. Calgary gets Eric Gustafsson for a conditional for a third-round pick going to Chicago. At that time, I thought they could have got a second for him, and I was kind of upset that he got a third. But you know what? A third's a third. Gustafsson was not having the year he had in 2018-19, where he had 60 points. Carolina gets Vatanen for Frederick Kleeson, Yanni Kukkonen, and a third going to New Jersey. Let's see. Washington gets Daniel Sprong on February 24th for Christian Jews going to Anaheim. Vegas gets Nick Cousins for a fourth-round pick going to Montreal. Brandon Davidson goes to San Jose for future considerations to Calgary. Robin Lehner goes to Toronto for Martins Dzakis going to Chicago. Then Lehner is then flipped to Toronto for a fifth-round pick. So it's a three-way deal. Lehner ends up going to Vegas. And then Chicago gets Malcolm Subban, Slavin Demin, and a second-round pick in exchange for Martins Dzakis then going to Vegas. So that's how the three-way trade works. So that's all prior to the season ending. So the Hawks tandem going into the playoffs, it went from Lehner and Crawford to Crawford and Subban. And then after the season's, well, not after the season's over, but during the playoffs, after teams are eliminated, Kapanen, Aberg, and Lindgren go to Pittsburgh. Rodriguez, Borowski, and Hollander, along with a first, go to Toronto. Rodriguez does not play in Toronto. Jake Allen goes to Montreal with a seventh. St. Louis gets a third and a seventh going to them because they don't need him because they have Binnington. Minnesota gets Bukestad for a conditional seventh. Montreal gets Edmondson for a fifth-round pick to Carolina. Buffalo gets Eric Stahl for Marcus Johansson to Minnesota. Hornqvist goes to Florida for Mike Matheson and Colton Sceviour. That goes to Pittsburgh. Detroit gets Mark Stahl and a second for future considerations going to New York. And Brandon Peary goes to Chicago for Dylan Sakura going back to Vegas. In October, Josh Brown goes to Ottawa for a fourth-round pick to Florida. Oli Mata goes to LA for Brad Morrison to Chicago. That was a weird deal. Ryan Donato goes to San Jose for a third to Minnesota. Devin Dubnyk and a seventh go to San Jose for a fifth-round pick going to Minnesota. And that concludes a lot of trades. A lot of trades in 2020. Everyone expected the cap to go up. It ends up not going up, and that kind of what screws up a lot of teams up until this day. And we see the effects of 2019-20. This video has been going on for almost 50 minutes, and that's because of just how much this season changed a lot. This season changed basically everything in the NHL. It was also a CBA year, which ends up getting extended because of what's been going on here. And the CBA, that comes up in the 26-27 season. Hopefully there won't be a lockout. Hopefully they're sitting down trying to figure that out because we do not need another lockout or a shortened season or something like that. Because we've had 3 lockouts, 1 shortened season because of a pandemic, and we don't need any more. To be honest, we don't need any more. But that's going to conclude the wildest season in NHL history, the most strange season. I want to thank you all so much for watching if you made it through this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Have a good one.